He rejected her in front of the entire pack. Then he mailed her an invitation to his wedding. She was the quiet girl above the library. No one knew her bloodline ran older than the kingdom itself, until the Alpha King arrived at her door. Silver eyes, black car, a dress sewn with protection runes. Wear something that makes you feel like you are not asking permission to exist. She walked into the ceremony on his arm, a champagne glass shattered. Her former mate could not breathe. Candles flickering, a slap echoing, a bride unraveling, a cursed bloodline ending, an ancient gift waking inside her blood, a king who came across a continent to find her. You see me now because someone else saw me first. Elena Rivers learned early that the world has a particular cruelty for quiet women. She learned it the way most people learn cold weather, slowly. Then, all at once. She was 23 years old the night her life broke in half. And the strange thing was, she didn't see it coming. Not really. People who get blindsided rarely do. That's the whole point of being blindsided. The Silver Moon Pack lived in a stretch of forested mountain country in the Pacific Northwest, where the trees grew tall enough to swallow the moon, and the houses had been there longer than the roads. It was the kind of place where everyone knew your last name before they knew your first one. And Elena's last name, Rivers, didn't mean much to anyone. Her mother had been a seamstress who took in mending and sometimes made wedding dresses for the Alpha's relatives. Her father had been a name on a birth certificate, and not much else, a wolf who had passed through the pack one winter, 24 years ago, and had not stayed long enough to see the result. Elena lived alone in a small apartment above the pack library. The window faced east. The kettle whistled every morning at 6:15. The radiator clanked when the weather turned. The wood floors had been refinished once, badly, before she had moved in, and the place smelled, faintly always, like old paper and cinnamon tea. She liked it that way. Or she told herself she did. Her mother had died when Elena was 14. Cancer. The kind that doesn't negotiate. Near the end, in a hospital bed in a small clinic an hour outside of Seattle, in a room that smelled like bleach and old roses, her mother had taken Elena's hand and said something that Elena would carry the rest of her life. No one gets to tell you who you are, baby. Not even me. You hold that line. Elena had nodded. Because that's what you do when your mother is dying. You nod. She didn't understand the line at 14. She thought she did. She didn't. She would, eventually. The hard way. Everyone learns it the hard way. The funeral was small. Her mother had not made many close friends inside the pack. There had been an uncle, on her father's side, who had sent flowers and not come. There had been Elder Cordelia Ashford, who had stood at the back of the chapel in a black coat and watched Elena from a distance, with an expression Elena had not understood at the time. There had been Zoe Bennett's mother, who had brought a casserole and sat with Elena in the empty apartment for 2 hours afterward without saying much. Which was, Elena learned later, the kindest thing anyone could have done. After the funeral, Elena was supposed to be placed with a foster family inside the pack. That was the protocol. A 14-year-old wolf could not legally live alone. But the head librarian at the time, a woman named Mrs. Hennessy, who was now 10 years older and ran the front desk with a kindness that pretended to be gruffness, had quietly arranged for Elena to take the apartment above the library. Mrs. Hennessy had also quietly hired Elena as an assistant, quietly trained her, quietly let her grow up inside the building. It was the closest thing Elena had ever had to being adopted. For 9 years afterward, Elena worked at the library. She cataloged, she shelved, she learned the bones of the place. She read books that nobody else would touch, histories of bloodlines, records of treaties from packs that no longer existed, the kind of dust-covered material that made other young wolves yawn into their coffee. Elena loved it. She loved the silence of the stacks. She loved knowing where every book lived, the way some people love knowing their own children's faces. She loved the small leather chair in the back corner of the reading room, where the light came in green through the old curtain, and you could go a whole afternoon without anyone interrupting you. She loved the smell of binding paste. She loved the small sound the card catalog made when a drawer was pulled all the way out. She was small. Brown coat when she shifted, no markings, nothing to make a person look twice. In a pack where strength was measured the way other communities measured wealth, Elena had learned to be invisible. It was not a tragedy. It was a strategy. You cannot lose what no one knows you have. You cannot be diminished if you have already made yourself the size that no one is looking for. Her wolf, when she let her out, was quiet. Liked to run in straight lines. Did not enjoy crowds. Did not bite. Did not push. Elena and her wolf had come to an understanding very early. Stay small. Stay safe. Stay out of the way of the wolves who took up too much space and the wolves who liked to clip those who didn't. For 9 years, the arrangement held. Until her 21st birthday. The Silver Moon Pack held an autumn equinox celebration every year. A bonfire was built in the clearing behind the Alpha's house. There were drinks. There was music. The kind that came from a fiddle and a small portable speaker someone had set up on the porch. The older wolves told stories the younger ones pretended to listen to. The children ran between the legs of their parents and were called away from the fire pit every 5 minutes. Elena had not planned to go. Elena had not planned to go to anything that involved being in a clearing with 100 wolves and an open fire. Elena had planned to spend her 21st birthday inside the library, with a slice of grocery store cake and a book she had been meaning to start for 3 months. She had taken the cake out of the box. She had set it on a plate. She had put a single candle on it and not lit it. Then Zoe Bennett had kicked her door open at 6 in the evening. Zoe was Elena's opposite in nearly every way. Rust red coat when she shifted. Loud laugh. The kind of woman who fought first and apologized never. She had been Elena's best friend since they were both 7 years old and had bonded over the shared experience of being the only 2 girls in their elementary self-defense class who had been able to throw the instructor. You can't just rot in here. Rivers, watch me. It's your 21st. I'm aware. You're going to the bonfire. I'm not. You are. And you're going to wear something other than that sweater. And you're going to drink 1 cider. And you're going to let me introduce you to the new wolf from Riverbend that I keep telling you about, Zoe. Up. Now. I will physically lift you. Elena went, not because of the new wolf from Riverbend, who turned out to be married and there with his pregnant wife, but because Zoe had a way of making refusal more exhausting than agreement. Elena put on a deep red blouse her mother had made for her 16th birthday and never given away. She let Zoe brush out her hair. She walked the half-mile to the Alpha's clearing, with her hands in her jacket pockets and her breath fogging in the cool evening air. And that's where it happened. She would remember it later in pieces. The smoke off the bonfire. The taste of cider on her tongue, slightly too sweet, slightly too cold. Someone laughing too loudly behind her. In that way men laugh when they are performing the laugh as much as feeling it. The fiddle somewhere on the porch, in a key that did not match the song the singer was singing. And then the feeling. Like lightning had crawled up her spine and split her chest open from the inside. Like every nerve in her body had been waiting for this one signal for 21 years. And now the signal had finally come, and her wolf was howling somewhere deep behind her ribs, joyful, terrified, alive. Her wolf, who never howled. Her wolf, who liked the quiet, was howling like she had been waiting her whole life to do it. Mate. The word landed in her chest like a coin in a fountain. She turned, slowly, because some part of her already knew. Some part of her could already feel the direction of the pull and the size of the source, and her stomach was doing something that was not quite excitement and not quite dread. Across the fire, with 2 of his friends and a beer in his hand, stood Lucas Hawthorne, beta of the Silver Moon Pack. 28 years old. Jaw like a dare. Ice blue eyes that always seemed to be calculating something, even when he was laughing. Powerful in the easy way of men who had been told their whole lives that they were powerful. Standing at the far edge of the fire in a leather jacket that cost more than 3 months of Elena's rent, their eyes met. She watched the recognition land in him. Watched it. Like watching a stone drop into still water. He felt it. She knew he felt it. The mate bond doesn't lie. It doesn't go in one direction. The moon goddess does not send half a signal, and then she watched the second thing land. The thing she was not prepared for, disgust. It rolled across his face in a single second. Surprise. Recognition, calculation, rejection, all 4 expressions in less time than it took to breathe. Then he turned, deliberately, shoulders squaring, back to her. He said something to one of his friends. The friend laughed. Elena stood there with her hand, half raised, and didn't know where to put it. The cider in her other hand had gone, in the space of 3 seconds, from cold to merely cool. She set it down on a stump that was being used as a side table. Her hand was steady. She would remember that, later. Her hand was steady, the night Lucas Hawthorne turned his back on her in front of the bonfire. Steadier than it had any right to be, she would tell herself, later, that she walked away with dignity. That she did not let her face change. That she did not cry until she got home. All of that was a lie. She cried in the upstairs bathroom of the Alpha's house with the door locked and her fist pressed against her mouth so the sound would not carry. because her mother's voice was in her head. No one gets to tell you who you are. And she was trying. She was trying. But the bond was singing in her veins and pulling her toward a man who had looked at her like she was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. And her own wolf, who never howled, was howling now in a register of pain Elena did not know wolves could make. She stayed in that bathroom for 45 minutes. When she came out, the party had moved into a louder phase, and no one noticed her at all. She walked home. She did not say goodbye to Zoe. She did not finish her cider. She did not go to bed when she got home. She sat on her couch in her mother's red blouse until the sky started turning pale at the eastern window, and she waited for him to come. She had 3 days of waiting in her. She did not know that yet. She thought, that first night that he would come. He didn't. 3 days he waited, or rather, 3 days she waited, in her small apartment above the library, while he did whatever he was doing somewhere else in the pack. She did not eat much. She drank too much coffee. She told Mrs. Hennessy she had a stomach bug and stayed home from work for 2 of the 3 days, which was the first time Elena had called in sick to anything in 5 years. She thought, on the first day, that he would come and apologize. She thought, on the second day, that he had been shocked and needed time to process and was coming up with the right words. By the third day, she had stopped pretending she was waiting for anything good. On the third day, the message came. Not in person. Through a low-ranking warrior who she had known since middle school, a wolf named Ricky, who had always been kind to her in the small ways that 14-year-old boys can be kind to girls they do not understand. Ricky knocked on her door at 3 in the afternoon. He looked like he had been forced to come. Elena, Ricky, Beta Hawthorne sent me. She felt her own face go still. It was a particular kind of stillness. She would learn to access it later, on purpose. This first time, it just happened to her. He needs you at the training grounds. Today. 4 o'clock, for what? Ricky's eyes did not quite meet hers. He didn't say. He just said you needed to come. Elena nodded. I'm sorry, Ricky said very softly. Then he turned and walked away down the stairs as fast as he could without running. She stood in the doorway for a long minute after he had gone. The wind was moving the small wind chime her mother had hung outside the door 14 years ago. She listened to it for a while, then she went inside and changed her clothes. She thought, foolishly, briefly, that maybe he had reconsidered. That maybe the mate bond had hit him too hard at the bonfire, and he had panicked, and now he had calmed down, and he was going to apologize, and they would figure something out together. She put on a blue sweater her mother had knitted the year before she died. She did her hair. She walked the half-mile from the library to the training grounds, with her hands sweating inside her jacket pockets, and her heart doing something complicated in her chest. It was a cold afternoon. The sun was already starting to slip behind the trees on the western edge of the packlands. The training grounds were a flat, open field of packed dirt surrounded by low wooden fencing, with a long building at the north end where the warriors stored their equipment. There were perhaps 40 wolves there when Elena arrived, some sparring in pairs, some watching from the fence. A small cluster of younger wolves near the equipment shed, drinking water and laughing about something. Lucas was waiting in the center of the ring. He had brought an audience. That was the first thing she understood as she walked up. He had not asked her to come privately. He had not asked her to come to his house, or to a quiet corner of the pack hall, or to anywhere a person might go who wanted to say a difficult thing in a way that respected the person they were saying it to. He had asked her to come to the most public space in the pack at the time of day when the most warriors would be present, and he had not told her why. That was the moment she understood what was about to happen. She kept walking anyway. Her legs carried her forward without her permission. She was not going to turn around and run, because turning around and running would have made it worse. The only thing worse than what was about to happen was the version of it where she fled before it happened. And people had to talk about her fleeing for the rest of her life. She walked up to the edge of the ring. Lucas did not smile when he saw her. He did not nod. He did not soften. He was in his training gear, dark-fitted shirt, dark pants. The set of his shoulders said he was treating this like a duty, something unpleasant to be gotten through, like cleaning out a freezer. The other warriors had stopped sparring. The conversations had quieted. A small ring of attention had formed around the two of them without anyone deciding to form it. Elena could feel 40 pairs of eyes on her back. Ella, Lucas said. He frowned. The frown was small, just a flicker. The way a person's face moves when they realize they have said the wrong word. Elena. He had not bothered to learn her name. In 6 months of knowing he had a mate somewhere in this pack, in 3 days of knowing it was her specifically, he had not bothered to learn the actual sound of it. Her stomach dropped through the floor of the world. I, Lucas Hawthorne, beta of the Silver Moon Pack, the voice projected. The voice was for everyone. The voice was not for her. Reject you as my mate. The world made a sound she had never heard before, like glass cracking somewhere inside her chest, like something being torn that was not meant to be torn, fiber by slow fiber, in a way that she could feel each separate fiber giving. She stumbled, just one step. But she stumbled, and she heard somebody snicker. And she pressed her hand over her heart because that's where the pain was. That's where it was. Right there, right under her ribs, and she could not breathe. Accept it. His voice was bored. Don't drag this out. Somewhere behind him, one of his friends, a wolf named Connor she had known since high school, said something about appropriate matings. Said it just loud enough for her to hear, and just quietly enough that he could pretend afterward he had not meant for her to. Elena looked up. She made herself look up. Lucas met her eyes. There was nothing there. Not pity. Not regret. Not even cruelty. Really, which would have at least been something to push against. There was just nothing. Like she had inconvenienced him by existing. I, Elena Rivers. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Accept your rejection. The bond severed. It was worse than the rejection itself. Because the rejection had been claws, but the severing was the blade. She felt the connection between them dissolve like salt in warm water. Felt every place inside her chest where the bond had been rooting itself for 3 days simply unhook. Felt her own wolf, in the back of her mind, go silent in a way that wolves are not supposed to go silent. She dropped to her knees in the dirt. She did not remember walking home. But she must have walked home. Because she woke up the next morning, in her own bed with grass stains on the knees of her jeans and her mother's voice nowhere to be heard. That was 6 months ago. 6 months. Long enough to learn how to take a different route to work to avoid the training grounds. Long enough to develop a sixth sense for when Lucas was in a room, so she could leave before he saw her. Long enough to lose 9 pounds without noticing. Long enough for the whispers to die down. To a low hum, the whispers never really died. They just got quieter. Elena Rivers became, inside the pack, the rejected one. The cautionary tale. The girl whose own mate had not wanted her, which meant something had to be wrong with her, didn't it? Had to. Mate bonds didn't lie. Mate bonds didn't make mistakes. If Lucas Hawthorne had rejected her, then she must have been the mistake. She started to believe it. That was the worst part. She started to believe it. She would catch herself in the mornings looking in the small bathroom mirror and cataloging her flaws like an inventory clerk. Hair too plain, eyes too tired, shoulders too narrow, skin too pale in winter, mouth set wrong, somehow. She had never paid this much attention to her own face in 23 years of having one, and now she could not stop. And the more she looked, the more she could see what Lucas had seen across the bonfire. She had decided, simply not enough. That was the lie she told herself for 6 months. That was the lie that grew teeth. She buried herself in the library. 16-hour days. Sometimes 17. The Forbidden Archives became her favorite place because nobody else went there. The smell of old leather and slow decay. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything of you. She cataloged the bloodline registries. She organized the treaty records by territory. She traced the pack histories back to the founding generation, and beyond Mrs. Hennessy noticed. Mrs. Hennessy did not say anything for a while. Then, one morning in late October, she set a thermos of soup on Elena's desk and looked at Elena over her reading glasses and said only, "You can't outwork a wound, dear. You can only let it heal." Elena had not answered. She had not been able to. She had eaten the soup later, at her desk, alone, and cried into the empty thermos when no one could see. Then Lucas started dating Vivian Sterling. Of course he did. Of course, Vivian was the alpha's daughter. 25. Silver blonde hair that caught the light like it owed her money. A wolf so pale she practically glowed under the moon. The kind of woman who had been told from the cradle that she was extraordinary and had absorbed the information thoroughly. She wore cashmere in the winter. She did not work. She had spent 2 semesters at a college in Washington State, studying art history, and then come home to assist her mother with pack events, which mostly meant standing decoratively at openings and ribbon cuttings and looking expensive. Lucas and Vivian. Beta and the alpha's daughter, politically perfect. The pack adored it. Elena heard about it the way she heard about everything now. Secondhand. From Zoe, who said it gently. From Margot Beaumont at the boutique, who said it with a French sigh that somehow conveyed all the things English couldn't. From the Omegas in the pack kitchen, who did not realize she was within earshot, and who fell into a guilty silence the moment they saw her coming around the corner with a tray. Elena absorbed each piece of information and went back to her cataloging. She told herself she was fine. She was not fine. She was a woman who had stopped looking at her reflection except to make sure her face was clean. Even then she did it fast, like she did not want to catch herself in the act of being seen. She thought, sometimes late at night, that this was the rest of her life. This small apartment, this quiet job, this pack that had decided what she was and would never decide otherwise. She thought, sometimes, about leaving. Transfer to another pack. Starting over somewhere her name did not mean anything yet. She did not leave. Leaving was its own kind of admission. Leaving meant Lucas Hawthorne had run her out of her own home. So she stayed, and the invitation arrived on a Tuesday. She remembered that detail because Tuesdays were her organizing the restricted section days, and she had been in the back when she heard the knock at her apartment door. She came down the stairs in stockinged feet, expecting a delivery, expecting Zoe with takeout, expecting anything other than what was actually waiting on her landing. It was an Omega, a young one, maybe 17 years old. He was holding a cream-colored envelope with the pack seal pressed into the wax, and his ears were red, and he could not meet her eyes. Miss Rivers, yes, this is for you. She took the envelope. Heavy paper, embossed seal. The kind of stationery that costs more than a week of her groceries. The Omega swallowed. He said everyone in the pack had to get one. He said it had to be hand-delivered. Personally. He was very specific about that part. She knew before she opened it. She knew the way she had known at the bonfire. Some part of her had already done the math while the Omega was still speaking. I'm sorry, miss, the Omega whispered. I didn't want to be the one to bring this. I drew the short straw. It's not your fault, I know. I'm still sorry. She closed the door, gently, so he would not feel worse than he already did. She slid down the back of the door until she was sitting on the floor of her own apartment in her stockinged feet. She opened the envelope. You are cordially invited to witness the mating ceremony of Beta Lucas Hawthorne and Vivian Sterling. Her hands did something she did not ask them to do. They shook. The paper rattled against itself. She read the words 3 times before they registered, and even after they registered, she did not believe them. She kept thinking, no, surely not. Surely he would not. He would. He had the ceremony was in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. He wanted her there. He had ordered the Omegas to hand-deliver the invitations so he could be sure she got hers. So he could be sure she knew. It was not enough that he had rejected her. It was not enough that he had done it in front of 40 witnesses. He wanted her in the audience. He wanted her watching when he gave another woman the bond that should have been hers. She did not cry. That surprised her. Some other thing was happening to her that was not crying. Something colder. Something that did not have a name yet. For 3 days, she did not leave the apartment. She did not answer the phone. She did not open the curtains. She sat on her couch in the same sweater she had been wearing when the invitation came, and she stared at a spot on the wall where the wallpaper was peeling, and she thought about her mother. No one gets to tell you who you are, baby. But what if you stopped knowing? What if the not knowing wore a hole through you? On the 4th day, Zoe Bennett kicked her door in, not metaphorically, actually kicked it. The frame splintered just above the strike plate. The wood gave with a small, almost polite sound. Get up, Zoe. Get up, Elena. I swear on every star in the sky. Zoe was carrying a paper bag of takeout from the only good Chinese place within 30 miles. A bottle of red wine that cost more than she could afford, and her amber eyes were burning, and she looked like she wanted to find Lucas Hawthorne and feed him his own teeth. You haven't answered the phone in 3 days. Mrs. Hennessy called me. She's worried sick. Margot called me. Even your downstairs neighbor called me. And your downstairs neighbor is 67 years old and barely knows your name. I'm fine. You are not fine. You are sitting in the dark. Look at me, Rivers. Look at me. Elena looked. Zoe set the takeout aside. She knelt down in front of the couch. She took Elena's hands in both of her own. Zoe's hands were warm. They were always warm. It was one of the things Elena had loved about her since they were children. What did he do? Elena could not say it out loud. She just gestured at the invitation lying on the coffee table. Zoe picked it up. Read it. Her face did several things very quickly. He's not, Zoe. That absolute coward of a son of a bitch. Zoe stood up, sat down, stood up again, paced the small living room in 3 strides each direction, like a wolf in a cage too small for her. This is psychological warfare, I know. This is sick. This is calculated. This isn't a man getting married. This is a man hosting a public execution and inviting the victim. I know, you can't go. I have to go, Elena. If I don't go, everyone will know it broke me. Everyone will whisper for the rest of my life that he won. He doesn't get to win, Zoe. He doesn't get to. Zoe stopped pacing. She came back. She sat on the couch beside Elena. She looked at her old friend for a long moment with an expression Elena had not seen on her face since they were children. Then leave the pack. Transfer. Silverpeen would take you in a heartbeat. You're a certified archivist. You could disappear and start over somewhere they don't know your name, and he'd still win. That's not winning. That's surviving. It's the same thing to him. He wants me gone. Whether I go in shame or just go, he still wins. Zoe was quiet for a long time. Okay, she said finally. Then what's the plan? Elena did not have a plan. Not yet. But something was starting in her chest. Something that felt less like grief and more like a slow fire being banked under cold ashes. I'm going to that ceremony. Okay. And I'm going to walk in there looking like a woman he does not recognize. Okay? And he is going to choke on it. Zoe smiled. For the first time in months, Elena smiled back. It was not a large smile, but it was the first time she had felt the muscles of her own face move in that direction since the bonfire. And the smallness of it did not matter. What mattered was the direction. The next morning, she went to see Margot Beaumont. Margot ran the only real boutique in Pack territory, a converted storefront on the small main street that ran through the central village, with a striped awning over the front window and a single bell over the door that rang in 2 notes when you came in. Margot had married into Silvermoon 10 years ago from a French pack outside of Lyon, and she had brought with her a wardrobe of opinions and an accent that could cut glass. She was in her late 50s. Silver streaks ran through her dark hair. She wore lipstick to take out the trash. The shop was empty when Elena arrived. Margot was at the back, steaming a pale silk dress on a form. She looked up when the bell rang. Her eyebrows rose in the small, theatrical way only French women can manage, Mademoiselle Rivers. To what do I owe? Elena did not bother with small talk. She did not have the energy for small talk anymore. I need your help. I need to look beautiful for one specific occasion. I have 2 weeks and not much money. Margot set down the steamer. She crossed her arms. She studied Elena with the slow, professional eye of a woman who had spent 30 years dressing other women and could tell, within 10 seconds of meeting them, what they had been told their whole lives about their own bodies. You are going to the wedding, yes. Of the man who rejected you publicly? Yes, and you want to look beautiful. I want to look like a woman he should have fought wars for. Margot was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. A short, sharp sound, almost a bark of joy. The laugh of a woman who had been waiting, possibly her whole life, for another woman to walk into her shop and say exactly that sentence. Now we are talking, Cherry. She crossed the shop floor. She began to circle Elena slowly, the way a sculptor circles a block of marble. You cannot afford what I am going to do for you. So we are not going to discuss money. I am going to give this to you, as a gift. From one woman who has been thrown away to another, Elena's eyes burned. Margot, do not cry. We do not have time to cry. We have 2 weeks. There is much to do. Take off that coat. Elena took off the coat, and the sweater. Elena hesitated. Mademoiselle, I have seen many women's shoulders. I am not interested in yours in any way that should embarrass you. The sweater. Elena took off the sweater. She stood in the middle of Margot's shop in her plain bra and her plain jeans and her plain socks, and she let a small, sharp-eyed French woman walk a slow circle around her. Yes, yes. Bone structure you have, hidden under all that sadness, but it is there. Skin you have. The color is good. We will need to feed you. You have lost weight in places you cannot afford to lose weight. Hair we will deal with later. Yuki Tanaka. She owes me a favor. She will come. Margot, hush. Posture. Pull your shoulders back. Further. Stop. Hold. Elena held. Yes, there it is. You see? You have been carrying yourself like an apology, mademoiselle, for a very long time. We are going to stop the apologizing. 2 weeks. We are going to teach your body to stand like a woman who has never asked permission for anything in her life. Elena swallowed. The room was suddenly blurry. I don't know if I know how. Margot stopped circling. She came to stand directly in front of Elena. She put one finger under Elena's chin and lifted, very gently, until Elena was forced to meet her eyes. Then I will teach you, Cherry. 2 weeks. Come back tomorrow at 10. Eat breakfast first. We have work to do. Elena went home that night with 2 garment bags and a list of instructions. Posture. The way to walk into a room. the way to hold a glass, the way to make eye contact with someone who did not deserve it. She slept that night for the first time in weeks. Actually slept. Not the thin, broken sleep of grief, but something deeper. The kind of sleep where the body finally believes you that you are not under attack. She dreamed of running through a forest she had never seen. The trees were enormous. The moon was full. Somewhere ahead of her, half hidden in the dark, was a building made of pale stone. A temple, maybe. She did not know. She woke before she reached it. She did not think much of the dream. That was a mistake. The dreams kept coming every night for a week. Always the same forest, the same temple, the same moon. Sometimes she got closer, sometimes she did not. Once, she heard a woman's voice calling her name from inside the temple, and she woke up gasping, the sheets soaked through, her heart going too fast. She mentioned it to Zoe over coffee at the small diner 3 blocks from the library. Stress, Zoe said around a mouthful of pancakes. Your brain is melting. Drink your coffee. Eat your eggs. But Elena was not sure, because other things were happening too. She could tell when people were lying. Not always, but sometimes. The Omega who delivered her mail told her good morning, and she felt a small, sour twist in her chest, and somehow knew he was upset about his sister, who he had not mentioned. The barista at the Pack Cafe told her she liked Elena's coat, and Elena heard the lie under the words. Not a malicious lie, a small one. The kind of lie people tell to be polite. But Elena heard it under the surface like a wrong note in a chord, and she did not know what to do with that. She started cataloging. The way she cataloged everything. A small notebook in her coat pocket. The date, the interaction, what she had felt. Whether she had been able to confirm it later. She was right 4 times out of 5. She went back to her mother's old correspondence. She kept it in a box under her bed. Letters, photographs, a few small leather journals. She had not looked at any of it in years. She had not been able to bear it. But now she pulled the box out and sat cross-legged on the floor of her bedroom in the early morning light, and she started reading. That is where Elder Cordelia Ashford found her. Cordelia was the Pack historian. She was somewhere north of 80, frail as old paper, sharp as a paring knife. She lived in a cottage on the edge of Pack territory and almost never came into the main grounds anymore. Elena had spoken to her twice in her life. Both times had been about library acquisitions. So when Cordelia appeared in the doorway of the restricted archive late one afternoon, leaning on her cane, breathing a little too hard from the walk, Elena nearly dropped the volume she was holding. Elder Cordelia. Sit down, child. Elena sat. Cordelia crossed the room slowly. She lowered herself into the chair opposite Elena with the deliberate caution of the very old. Her cane she set across her knees. Her hands she folded over the cane. Her eyes she fixed on Elena's face. She studied Elena for a long time without speaking. The eyes were milky at the edges and clear at the center, like a window left out in winter. Your mother worked for me. Elena blinked. I'm sorry? Before she got sick, she worked for me. Research. The bloodlines, the old records, the dressmaking paid the rent. The research was the rest. My mother was a seamstress. Your mother was many things, child. The sewing paid the rent. The thinking was what she was actually for. Elena's mouth went dry. Cordelia reached into the satchel at her side and pulled out a leather-bound book. Old, cracked along the spine, smaller than Elena had expected. She set it on the desk between them with a care that suggested the book mattered more than the satchel mattered, and probably more than the cottage Cordelia lived in. She made me promise to give you this, if you ever needed it. I have been carrying it around in my satchel for 9 years. I think the time has come. What is it? Open it. Elena opened it. The first page was her mother's handwriting. Elena's chest seized. Her mother's handwriting had a particular slant, slightly too tall, the loops on the lowercase L's longer than they needed to be. Seeing it again was like opening a closet that had been sealed for a decade and finding a coat that still smelled like the person you loved, for Elena. When she is ready to know the truth, she looked up. Cordelia's eyes were watching her with something that was not quite pity. Closer to recognition. Closer to relief. What truth? That you are not who you have been told you are. That your blood is older than this pack. That what is happening to you, the dreams, the sensitivities, the small unraveling, is not stress. It is your inheritance. Finally arriving, I don't understand, you will. Read it. Slowly. Some of it she had to write in code. She did not want anyone else to find it if the journal was ever lost. Elder Cordelia. Please. What am I? The old woman folded her hands over the head of her cane. She looked toward the high window where the late afternoon light was striking the dust in slow gold drifts. When she spoke, her voice was very soft. You are the last of the Silver Scribes. Child, or the first in 200 years to wake up. The name meant nothing to Elena, but something in her chest registered it anyway. A small heat, a pulling. The same pull she had felt in the dream, walking toward the building of pale stone, and before you ask. No, I cannot tell you what that means in any depth. Your mother wrote it for you. The journal will tell you more than I can in an afternoon. Read what she wrote. Cordelia stood slowly. She turned toward the door. Elder. Yes, why now? Cordelia paused. She did not turn around, because rejection breaks something open in the women of your line. It is how the gift wakes up. It always has been. The pain creates a doorway, and what was sleeping walks through it. She tapped her cane once against the floor. Your beta did you a kindness, child. He just did not know it. She left. Elena read her mother's journal that night. All of it. She did not sleep. The dawn came in through her eastern window and found her at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes, and her mother's handwriting still spread across the surface in soft loops and slants. The Silver Scribes, her mother had written, were the advisors to the first Alpha King. Record keepers, truth readers, wolves whose power was not in their teeth but in their minds and their words. They had served as the conscience of the early packs, the check against Alpha tyranny, the keepers of the covenant between wolves and the moon goddess, who had given them the gift of transformation in the first place. The bloodline had been hunted nearly to extinction during the territory wars of the 17th century. The surviving scribes had scattered. Most had never known what they were. Most had lived ordinary lives and died ordinary deaths. The gift could lie dormant for generations, sometimes 10 generations. Sometimes more, till something tore bloodline open. A great grief her mother had written in a steady hand. A great betrayal. A great rejection of what the moon goddess had given. Elena's hand trembled as she turned the page. I do not pray that this will come for you, daughter. I pray it will not. I have spent your whole childhood praying it will not. But if you are reading this, then something has happened, and I am not there to hold you, and I am so sorry. So sorry. But know this. What was meant to destroy you may be the very thing that wakes you up. There were more pages. Many more. Her mother had written a kind of careful primer, what the dreams meant, what the truth-sensing meant. The names of 3 other suspected Silver Scribe descendants living in the western half of the country, 2 of them children. The names of the elders in 3 packs who could be trusted with the truth if Elena ever needed help. There was also a warning. Do not tell the Silvermoon leadership, her mother had written. The current Alpha is not the Alpha I knew when I was a young woman. The current Beta line, the Hawthorns, has a history with our line. It is not a good history. Read the marginal note on page 47. I have hidden the rest of what I know there. Do not let them find this journal. Do not let them know what you are. Keep this between you and a few good people, and one day, if the gift wakes, find an Alpha King worthy of trusting. Not before. Elena turned to page 47. The marginal note was in a code she could not read. Her mother had used a small system of dots and slashes that Elena had never seen before. She would have to study it. She would have to figure out the cipher. She closed the journal. She pressed her fingers against the cover until she could feel the indent of the embossing through her fingertips. She thought of her mother sitting at the kitchen table of the small apartment they had shared, hunched over this same book, writing in code, dying of cancer, and still using her last good months to leave her daughter a map. She stood up. She walked to the small mirror by her front door. She made herself look. The face that looked back at her was not the same face that had crawled home from a training ground 6 months ago. Something had changed at the edges. The eyes were harder. The mouth was set. There was a quietness in her that had not been there before, and the quietness was not weakness. The quietness was something else. It was waiting. She did not know yet for what. She would know in 3 days, because 3 days later, the Alpha King came to Silvermoon Pack. The morning of his arrival, the entire pack lost its mind. She could hear it from her apartment, doors slamming, warriors shouting in the courtyard below. Alpha Reyes Sterling's voice carrying across the grounds in a register. Elena had never heard from him before. Something between rage and panic, Zoe found her in the library by mid-morning, out of breath. Hair half fallen out of its braid. Snow on the shoulders of her jacket. It had started snowing at dawn, the first real snow of the season, and Zoe had been running. Did you hear what? Nikolai Volkov is coming? Elena set down the volume she had been reshelving. Her hands did not shake. They were getting better at not shaking. That's not possible. He's coming today. This afternoon. He sent word last night. Apparently, he just told Alpha Reyes he was coming, and that was it. No reason, no warning. Just a message saying he'd be here by 3 and would expect accommodation. Why, nobody knows. Reyes is losing his mind. Lucas is screaming at the Omegas. Vivian made a hairstylist drive in from Portland this morning. Portland Rivers. There's a snowstorm coming in over the mountains. A man drove 3 hours through it because Vivian Sterling needed her hair touched up for an unannounced royal visit. And get this. Zoe paused, savoring the next part. The king specifically asked for access to the archives. Elena's hand stilled on the book in front of her. The archives. Your archives, Rivers. She did not understand what was happening to her. The day moved past her like she was watching it through frosted glass. She organized the restricted section. She dusted the high shelves. She told herself 100 reasonable stories about why the most powerful wolf on the western half of the country would want to look at a small pack's historical records. And none of them involved her. Of course, none of them involved her. She was nobody. She was the rejected one. She was a girl whose own mother had said she was the last of an old line, and who did not yet believe it. Not in any way that lived in her body. She was high on the ladder, dusting the journals on the top shelf when she felt him. The word that came to her was presence, like a barometric drop before a storm, like the second before lightning. Every nerve she had ever inherited from her ancestors stood up at once and said Alpha. She turned too fast, lost her footing on the rung. Started to fall, hands caught her at the waist, strong, steady. Effortlessly steady. The grip did not crush. It simply held. She looked down, silver eyes. That was what she registered first. Not the height, not the cut of the dark suit, not the dark hair that fell almost to his collar. The eyes. Bright silver like a coin held up to moonlight. Like something old and aware looking out from a face that was very much in the present. Careful. The voice was low. There was a trace of an accent she could not quite place. Eastern European. Possibly Russian. Possibly something older. That would be an unfortunate way to meet. Her own voice did not work for a second. Then it did. The archives are closed for cleaning. I am exactly where I need to be. She climbed down the ladder. He let her. He stepped back. He gave her space, but he did not look away. You are the archivist. Yes, Elena Rivers. It was not a question. She felt her heart do something she had no name for. And you are? His mouth curved. The smile did not reach the silver eyes, which were doing something else entirely. They were studying her the way a person studies a text in a language he has been training to read his whole life and never expected to actually need. Someone who has been looking for you for a long time. Her stomach dropped. I don't understand. You will. Tell me, Miss Rivers. Do you know why I came to your pack today? I assumed political business. That is what your Alpha assumes. He reached past her. Without asking, without hesitating, he pulled a specific volume from the shelf behind her. The one her mother's journal had been hidden inside. The one Elena had brought to the archive that morning so she could copy a passage and had not yet returned to her apartment. He held it up. His silver eyes met hers. This one. She could not speak. Your mother was very thorough, he said quietly. She traced the bloodline almost completely. There were 3 names on her list of suspected descendants. 2 are children. 1 is an adult. The adult, Miss Rivers, is you? She felt the floor tilt. You came here for me. I came here for the last silver scribe in 200 years. I had hoped she would also be remarkable. She is, I'm not. You are awakening, whether you want to be or not. The dreams, the truth sensing. The small shifts you cannot explain. You can tell when I am lying. Try me, ask me anything. She did not ask him anything. She was not ready to know what she would feel if she did. What do you want? Several things. We will discuss most of them later, in a place that is not your former pack's library. Tonight, however, the conversation is simpler. I have been informed that the day after tomorrow, your former mate intends to bind himself to the Alpha's daughter. She did not trust her voice. He sent you an invitation, hand-delivered. Specifically so, you would have to witness it. Yes, he intends to humiliate you. Yes, he will fail. She looked up at him. What? He will fail, Miss Rivers, because he has miscalculated. He believes he is hosting an audience. He is not. He is hosting a reckoning, and he does not know it yet. The only question is whether you will arrive at that ceremony alone, hoping a nice dress and good posture will be enough, or whether you will arrive on the arm of someone who will make certain that every wolf in that room understands what kind of mistake your beta has made. The words took a moment to land. When they did, she actually laughed. It came out a little broken. It came out like something that had not been used in a while. You are asking me to go to the wedding with you. I am offering you the choice. Why? He was quiet a moment, because your bloodline has been forgotten. Because I do not approve of men who reject true mates for political convenience. Because I have read your mother's research and I think she was telling the truth about you. Because what you are about to become is the most useful thing that has happened to my court in a century. He paused. The silver eyes did not move, and Miss Rivers. Because I would like to see the look on his face when you walk in beside me. She was crying. She had not noticed when it had started. He did not move toward her. He did not soften. He simply held out a heavy cream envelope, the second one she had received in 2 weeks. Everything about this one was different. The paper was darker. The seal was the seal of the crown, not of Silvermoon. The choice is yours. Take this, and my car will be at your door the evening after tomorrow. Refuse it, and you will walk into that ceremony alone. Either way, I will respect your decision. But I will not pretend I do not have a preference. She took the envelope. Her hand was steady. She did not know when that had happened. She broke the seal. The Alpha King requests the honor of your presence as his guest of honor at the mating ceremony of Beta Lucas Hawthorne and Vivian Sterling. She read it twice. She looked up at Nikolai Volkov, who was watching her with an expression she could not quite name. Something like patience. Something like hunger. Something like the very old, very alert quietness of a predator who has decided not to move because the moment has not yet arrived. I will go with you, she said. His silver eyes warmed by exactly 1 degree. My car will be at your door at 6 the evening after tomorrow. Wear something that makes you feel like you are not asking for permission to exist. Then he turned. He moved through the stacks without sound. He left her standing alone in the restricted section of a library she had hidden inside for 9 years, holding an invitation in one hand and her mother's journal in the other. With her heart going faster than it had ever gone in her life. The next 36 hours moved like a fever dream. Elena did not remember leaving the archive. She remembered walking. She remembered the cold air on her face. She remembered Zoe meeting her at her front door because Zoe always seemed to know when something had happened, the way some friends do, the way some friends are, Rivers. What? He came to the library. Who? The king. Zoe blinked twice inside. Now, they sat at the kitchen table. Elena set the cream envelope between them. Zoe read it. Read it again. Set it down very carefully, the way you would set down a live grenade. Are you joking? I'm not joking, Elena. I'm not joking, Zoe, the Alpha King. Nikolai Volkov. Most powerful wolf in the western half of this country. He just walked into our library and asked you to be his date to your ex's wedding. He didn't call it a date. What did he call it? He called it a reckoning. Zoe stared at her. Something flickered across her face that Elena had never seen before. It was not quite admiration. It was closer to a kind of awe that did not entirely want to be awe, Rivers. You know this is dangerous, I know. He doesn't do anything without 3 layers of strategy, I know. He wants something from you. He told me what he wants. And it's true, some of it, maybe all of it. I don't know yet. But the part that's true is enough. Zoe was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up, started pacing the small kitchen. 3 strides one direction. 3 strides the other. Okay, what? Okay, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. I'm calling Margot. I'm calling Yuki. We have 36 hours. Sit down. Drink water. Eat something. I will be back in an hour. She kissed Elena on the top of the head as she left, which Zoe had not done since they were 17 years old. The next morning, Margot Beaumont nearly dropped a steamer when Elena walked into the boutique, carrying the garment bag the king's people had sent over. It had arrived at her apartment by private courier at 6 in the morning. A man in a black suit. A van with no license plates. He had handed her the bag and a small velvet box without speaking, and had been back in the van and gone before Elena could ask his name. The bag held a midnight blue silk dress. The box held a pair of earrings Elena did not have the vocabulary to describe. The note was in handwriting she did not recognize. Wear these. The car comes at 6. Margot took the dress out of the bag. She held it up to the light coming through the front window of the shop. She crossed herself in a way that was half French Catholic upbringing and half something older. Mademoiselle, I know. This is not from my shop, I know. This is from a house in Milan that has not taken a private commission in 20 years. I know. Elena, he sent it last night. Margot circled Elena slowly, the way she had circled her 2 weeks ago, except this time her face had gone serious in a way Elena had not seen on Margot's face before. These markings on the bodice. And here, along the back, what about them? They are not decoration, Cherry. They are protection runes. Very old. He is claiming you, in front of everyone who knows how to read them. Not as a lover, as something more careful than that. He is saying, "This woman is under my house, and anyone who touches her answers to me." Elena swallowed. "Why, that is a question, mademoiselle, that I cannot answer. Only he can. And you must decide whether to trust the answer when it comes." Yuki Tanaka arrived at noon. She was small, quiet, black hair cropped at the jaw, the kind of stylist who had walked away from a six-figure salary in Los Angeles to live in the mountains and only do hair when she felt like it. She had been doing hair for Margot's wedding clients for 4 years because Margot had pulled her out of a bad situation in her first month in the pack, and Yuki paid her debts the way she did everything else, in full and without complaint. She brought a black case the size of a small refrigerator. She brought opinions. Sit. Elena sat, eyes closed. Elena closed them. "You have been sleep-not-sleep for how long?" "A few weeks. That ends today." Yuki worked in silence for almost 2 hours. Elena did not look in the mirror. She had asked not to. She wanted the full shape of it. She wanted to see whatever this was as a stranger. Margot brought her tea. Zoe sat on the floor, beside the styling chair, with a stack of fashion magazines she was not reading, just turning pages with the wrong rhythm, the way a person does when they are too nervous to read. Around the small storefront, the snow kept falling. The street outside was quiet. The bell over the door rang once, when a customer tried to come in, and Margot waved them off without looking. "Today we are closed, madame. Family business. Try tomorrow." The customer left. The bell rang again. Yuki finished the makeup, then the hair. Then she stepped back and looked at her own work for a full 30 seconds. She nodded once, the way she always nodded, with the air of a craftswoman who knows she has done something right, but is not going to bother saying so out loud. "Done." Elena opened her eyes. Yuki turned the styling chair toward the mirror. For a long second, Elena did not understand what she was seeing. The woman in the mirror was not invisible. That was the first thing that registered. The woman in the mirror had cheekbones she could see, had eyes the color of dark honey, had hair that fell in loose dark waves around her shoulders like she had spent the morning walking in wind. Her mouth was a careful red. Her brows were drawn. Her skin was lit from inside in a way that had nothing to do with makeup, and everything to do with whatever was happening under her ribs. She did not look like Elena Rivers. Not the Elena Rivers anyone in Silvermoon Pack had ever met. She looked like a woman someone had written letters to. "Oh," Zoe said softly behind her, just that one syllable. It was the most surprised Zoe had ever sounded about anything. Margot was wiping at the corner of one eye, very quickly, and pretending she was not. Yuki was already packing up her case. She did not believe in lingering after a job. "I'll see myself out." "Margot, Thursday." Yuki left. The bell rang. The shop went quiet. Elena reached up and touched her outfit. The reflection touched its face back. "Hello," she said quietly, to herself, to the woman in the mirror, to something older. Hello. Then they got her into the dress. The dress went on like it had been made on her body. Margot fastened the small hooks down the back with a precision that suggested she had done this for hundreds of women and knew exactly the right amount of pull. Zoe stood watching, arms crossed over her chest, her expression caught between pride and something dangerously close to grief. "Rivers? Yeah, he's going to choke on his own tongue. That's the idea." "No, I mean Lucas. He's going to actually choke. Tonight." Like medically, Elena laughed. It came out cleaner than any laugh she had laughed in a year. They sat in Margot's small back office until 10 minutes to 6. Margot poured small glasses of something cold and bitter and French and made Elena drink hers in 3 swallows. "For the nerves. I have no nerves left, then for the celebration. There is a difference. Bon chance, Cherry." At 6 exactly, a long black car pulled up to the curb outside the boutique. The snow had stopped. The streetlights were just coming on. The car was the kind of car that did not exist in this pack. Elena saw it through the window and felt her own pulse in her temples. Zoe walked her to the door. "You sure? I'm sure. You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. Rivers. Yeah, whatever happens in there tonight. I'm proud of you. I have been proud of you since we were 7. I am specifically proud of you right now." Elena's eyes burned. She did not let the tears fall. She had not done all of this work to ruin the makeup before she even got to the wedding. "Go make him remember your name," Zoe said. Elena went. She rode in the back of the car alone for the first half-mile. The driver was a wolf in a black suit who had introduced himself as Mikhail and had nothing further to say. The car smelled like leather and a cologne she did not recognize. The streetlights of the small village slid past the tinted windows in long, warm streaks. Then they reached the gate of the pack grounds, and the driver pulled over to the shoulder, and the back door opened. and Nikolai Volkov slid into the seat beside her without preamble. Black suit. Different one than the library. Better cut. Silver cufflinks. The silver eyes had not changed, Miss Rivers, Your Majesty. You will not call me that tonight. What will I call you, Nikolai? In private, nothing in public. The silence between us will say more than any title. The car pulled forward. Elena felt her hands begin to shake. She willed them to stop. They did not, he noticed. He did not comment. He looked straight ahead through the partition glass at the road, and after a moment, without turning his head, he said something that did not match any expression on his face. You will not break tonight, I might. You will not. I have read your mother's journal. I know whose daughter you are. Tonight, you are going to walk into that room, and you are going to look at the man who tried to make you small, and you are going to make him understand, without saying a word, that he did not have the authority to do so. She breathed out. Slowly, the shaking eased a little. Why are you really doing this? I told you. Tell me the rest. He turned his head. The silver eyes caught the streetlight as the car moved through the dark. I will tell you everything you want to know. After tonight, you will not be able to focus if I tell you now. Try me after Nikolai, after Elena. It was the first time he had used her first name. She felt it land somewhere under her sternum, and she pretended she had not. The Silvermoon Pack Grand Hall sat at the end of a long crushed gravel drive that wound up through the trees on the eastern slope. Elena had walked that road 100 times. She had never seen it like this. The trees had been strung with white lights, the hedges had been trimmed, the arched front doors had been thrown open. A string quartet was playing something soft and bridal under the eaves. Wolves were already gathered on the steps and in the entry portico, pack members in their good clothes. Elena could see Alpha Reyes Sterling at the top of the stairs in a gray suit, cut to flatter the part of him he was hoping you would not notice. Beside him stood Beatrice Sterling, silver white hair pinned up, mouth painted the color of dried blood. The Luna of the Silvermoon Pack. A woman who had not spoken to Elena once in 23 years of sharing a pack. And there, on the second step from the top, in a black tuxedo that fit too well, with Vivian on his arm in a column of white silk and crystal, Lucas Hawthorne. The car eased to a stop. Elena could not see their faces from inside the car, but she could see the ways a conversation on the portico slowed and then died, the way heads turned, the way one woman lowered her champagne glass without finishing the sip. Take a breath, Nikolai said quietly. She took one, now another, she took another. Now we go. Mikhail opened the door from the outside. Nikolai stepped out first. The shock that moved through the gathered wolves on seeing him was almost audible, like a small wave breaking on a beach. The murmurs started immediately. The king is here. Why is the king here? Then he extended his hand to her. She placed her fingers in his. He helped her out of the car like she was something rare and breakable, which she was, although not in the way they would all assume. She straightened. She smoothed the line of the midnight blue silk. She lifted her chin 1 degree more than she had ever lifted it in her life, and she stepped into view. The entire portico went silent. It was the kind of silence that happens in nature only twice. Once, when a predator enters a clearing, and once, when something everyone thought was dead turns out to have been only sleeping. She heard a champagne glass shatter somewhere to her left. She did not look to see who had dropped it. She kept her eyes on the top of the stairs. Lucas Hawthorne was no longer standing on the second step. He had taken a half step backward, almost into the doorway, and his face had gone the color of old paper. His mouth was open. His hand was still on Vivian's arm, but it had gone slack. Vivian, beside him, had not yet registered. She was still smiling, the small, controlled smile of a bride being looked at. Then she registered that nobody was looking at her, and the smile faltered, and she turned her head and saw. Elena watched the moment Vivian Sterling understood what was about to happen to her wedding. It was a beautiful moment. Elena would not pretend later that it was not. Nikolai offered her his arm with old-world courtesy. She slipped her hand through it. They began to walk. The gravel crunched under her boots. The pack parted for them like water around a knife. She heard someone whisper her name. She heard someone else say, that's not Elena Rivers. But it was, of course it was, and the whispers grew until they were a hum and then a rolling sound under the music of the quartet. At the top of the stairs, Alpha Reyes Sterling stepped forward. His face had begun to sweat at the temples in spite of the cold. Your Majesty, we had no idea you were honoring us with your presence tonight. We would have prepared a proper welcome if we had known. I require no special welcome. Of course. Of course, I am here to support Miss Rivers. The Alpha's eyes flickered to Elena, then back to Nikolai, then back to Elena. She watched the calculation happen in his face in real time. He had not yet decided what to do about her. He had not been told he would have to. Elena, we are. Of course you are welcome. We did not expect. Of course you did not, Elena said quietly. It was the first thing she had said since stepping out of the car. Her voice carried just far enough. Lukas, behind his father-in-law, made a small sound. It was not a word. It was the sound a man makes when something inside him gives. Beta Hawthorne. Nikolai's voice was pleasant. It was the kind of pleasant that was about 3 degrees colder than the air around it. I understand it is customary in your pack to invite rejected mates to mating ceremonies. Is that a Silver Moon tradition? Or is public cruelty a personal hobby of yours? The portico went still. Lukas swallowed. Twice. His throat worked, Your Majesty. That isn't. It isn't what? Elena is. She is a valued pack member. We sent invitations to everyone. How generous, sir. Beta Hawthorne. Look at me. Lukas looked. He could not help it. Nobody did not look when Nikolai Volkov asked, This woman is here tonight as my guest. She is not yours to address. She is not yours to apologize to. She is not yours to look at any longer than is necessary to remain civil. Is that understood? Lukas's jaw worked. Yes. Then I suggest you find Miss Sterling and complete the ceremony you have so dramatically arranged. Miss Rivers and I will be watching from the front row. Vivian made a small sound at Lukas's elbow. He did not look at her. He still had not looked at her since Elena had stepped out of the car. Elena registered that, so did Vivian. So Elena suspected, did Beatrice Sterling? Nikolai guided Elena past them, into the hall. The pack on the steps closed behind them like dark water. She did not exhale until they were inside. The hall had been transformed in the way that money transforms things. Thousands of candles, white roses banked along every surface. The ceiling hung with silk panels in cream and silver, a raised dais at the front where the officiant, an elder named Magnus Thorne, stood waiting with his hands folded in front of him in the practiced patience of a man who had presided over 400 matings and was not paid by the hour. Front row, dead center. 2 empty seats, reserved presumably for the Alpha and his Luna, who would now have to sit elsewhere. Nikolai walked her to them. He sat. He gestured. She sat beside him. The hall began to fill behind them. She felt every eye in the room as they came in. She felt the whispers move through the rows. She heard her own name, heard the king's, heard half a dozen variations of did you see, and is that really, and how did she? She did not turn around. She had told herself before they got out of the car that she would not turn around once tonight, and she did not. Then Nikolai leaned slightly toward her. His shoulder did not touch hers. His voice was very low. Are you all right? No, good. If you said yes, I would not believe you. She almost laughed. Almost. How does it feel, he said. How does what feel? Sitting in that seat, she considered. Like I am the most expensive piece of glass in the room. And I don't know yet whether I am going to be drunk from or thrown. His mouth moved. A quiet thing. Not quite a smile. You are the only person in this room, he said, who is not going to break tonight. The music shifted. The processional began. Lukas entered first. He walked down the aisle alone. His face was the color of paste. His hand kept moving up to the collar of his tuxedo and back down. He kept his eyes resolutely forward on Magnus Thorne. He did not look at the front row. He did not look at the front row. He did not look at the front row, and Elena watched him not look at the front row, and she understood, with a small, cold pleasure she would have to forgive herself for later, that the not looking was costing him more than the looking would have. He took his place on the dais. The processional began again. Vivian's processional. Vivian came down the aisle the way Vivian had probably been coming down imaginary aisles since she was 4 years old, spine straight, chin tilted. Bouquet held at the precise angle they teach in pack finishing classes. The dress was magnificent, crystal and silk. A train that stretched 12 feet behind her, carried by 2 younger cousins in pale blue. She did not look at Elena either. She looked at Lukas. And here, finally, was the small mercy of the evening. Lukas was not looking at his bride. He was staring at the 3rd button of his own tuxedo jacket like it had personally offended him. Vivian was 12 feet away and watching him not look at her. Elena could see, even from the front row, the moment Vivian decided that she was going to make someone pay for this. She just did not yet know who. Magnus Thorne began the ceremony. We gather under the moon goddess's light, to witness the joining of 2 souls, 2 wolves, 2 destinies. Becoming one, the words washed over Elena. She had imagined this ceremony in the dark of her bedroom for 6 months. Imagined herself in this very chair, smaller and grayer and unraveling. She did not unravel. She sat very straight in her seat. She let the words pass through her like wind through a window. Beside her, she felt Nikolai's awareness. He was not looking at her. He was looking at Lucas. But he was tracking her the way the air tracks a candle, attentive without intruding. The vows began. Lucas spoke his vow in a voice that came out lower and rougher than he had probably intended. His eyes flickered. Once, down to the front row, he could not help it. He met Elena's eyes for half a second, and then jerked his gaze back to Magnus Thorne. And Vivian saw it. Alina saw Vivian see it. So did Beatrice Sterling. Seated now in the second row, whose mouth thinned into a wire, the vow was completed. Just barely, Vivian's voice when she spoke, her own vow was bright and clear and triumphant. She was claiming what she had been promised. She was the Alpha's daughter. She was the most beautiful woman in 3-pack territories. She had won the beta. She was, in the eyes of every wolf in this hall, the victor of a competition she had not realized she was in until 30 seconds before it was over. She kissed him. Lucas's eyes opened mid-kiss. He looked at Elena. He looked at her over Vivian's shoulder, mouth still pressed to his new wife's mouth, and the look on his face was one Elena would carry into her old age. It was not love. It was not desire. It was recognition. It was the look of a man who has stepped off a curb and only realized as the truck arrived that the curb had been the only ground he had. Then it was over. They turned. They walked back down the aisle as mated pair. The applause was the wrong volume. Too loud in some places, too quiet in others. Lucas's hand on Vivian's arm was loose. Vivian's smile was no longer reaching her eyes. Elena and Nikolai rose with the rest of the room. They followed the crowd through the connecting corridors to the reception hall. They did not speak. There was nothing to say. The reception hall had been done in the same colors, white, silver, a small fortune in candles. The newly mated pair stood in a receiving line at the entrance, accepting congratulations from pack members who had to walk past Elena to reach them. This was Lucas's mistake. This was the moment he had not planned for, because Elena had spent 6 months walking past people who whispered when she passed. She knew exactly how to walk past someone. She walked past Lucas and Vivian without slowing down, without turning her head, as if they were a piece of furniture. As if she had not known either of them in her life. She felt Lucas's eyes follow her. She felt Vivian register it. Nikolai led her to a table near the windows on the far side of the room. He pulled out her chair. He sat across from her. He signaled for 2 flutes of champagne. He did not speak. The reception began to move around them. And here was where Elena first understood that something had changed in her that she did not yet have words for, because she could feel them. The whole room, not their conversations. The thinger movements. Underneath. The undertow. The mass of small lying feelings that wolves spend every social occasion trying to hide. She felt Beatrice Sterling 6 tables away, simmering with a controlled rage she had not yet decided where to point. She felt Alpha Reyes Sterling working the room with the wide, false smile of a man who was already doing damage control on a wedding that had been over for 15 minutes. She felt Magnus Thorne by the bar, exhausted and faintly disgusted. She felt Vivian, standing in the receiving line, gripping Lucas's hand too hard, and she felt Lucas. She did not look at him. She did not need to. He was a roar of regret, a black wash of self-hatred and panic, and a sickening, late-arriving understanding. She had never felt anything so loud and so contained in the same body. She set her champagne down slowly. Elena, Nikolai's voice, soft. Across the table. Yes, what are you feeling? I am feeling them. All of them. Like I'm standing in a room where everyone is shouting, and only I can hear. Yes, why now? Because you needed something to push against. The bond severing 6 months ago broke the door open. Tonight broke the door off the hinges. You are not going to be able to close it again, Elena. I am sorry. I am not sorry. He looked at her then, truly looked. The silver eyes warmed a degree. He did not say anything for a moment. Good, he finally said. It was at that moment that Beatrice Sterling, having waited as long as she could stand to wait, crossed the room toward their table. She came in a controlled glide of pale silk. She arrived at Elena's chair with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. She inclined her head to Nikolai. The inclination was technically respectful and actually mocking, Your Majesty. What a delightful surprise it has been to host you, Luna Sterling. We were all rather caught off guard when we saw who you had escorted tonight. We had no idea you two were acquainted. We are now. How recently, may I ask? Recently enough. Beatrice Sterling's smile tightened by a millimeter. Her eyes cut to Elena. Elena, dear, Luna, I do hope you are not finding tonight too difficult. Elena set down her glass. She had not planned what she said next. It rose up out of somewhere she had not yet mapped inside herself. Luna Sterling. The most difficult thing in this room tonight is watching you stand there, pretending you do not know exactly what your daughter married. Please do not ask me to pretend with you. I am tired. The air at the table dropped 10 degrees. Beatrice Sterling's mouth opened. Then closed, Nikolai picked up his champagne. He swirled it once. He did not look at the Luna. His attention was on Elena, and there was something in his expression that Elena had never had directed at her before. It was approval, the pure, unguarded approval of a man watching something he had suspected would happen. Happen, Luna Sterling, he said quietly. I think the receiving line needs your attention. Your daughter looks very alone. It was a dismissal that could not be argued with. Beatrice turned. She walked away. Her spine was rigid. Elena exhaled. Her hands were shaking again. She did not try to stop them this time. I shouldn't have said that. You absolutely should have. It was cruel. It was true. Cruelty is when truth is used as a weapon against the undeserving. She is not undeserving. The reception moved on. The music started. The first dance happened. Lucas and Vivian moved through it with a stiffness that the crowd politely did not comment on. Lucas's eyes kept flickering toward Elena's table. Vivian's grip on his shoulder tightened with each lap of the dance floor. Then he broke. Elena saw the exact moment it happened, saw Lucas's face change, saw him say something to Vivian, saw Vivian's expression go cold, saw him step back from her at the edge of the dance floor and turn and start walking and walk and walk, all the way across the reception hall, eyes locked on Elena. He arrived at the table. He did not look at Nikolai. Elena, can we talk? She did not answer right away. She let him stand there. She watched him sweat. Then she lifted her eyes to his. No, please, no, Lucas, just for a minute. Somewhere private, Nikolai set down his champagne. The motion was unhurried. It was also the only motion in the entire reception. The wolves at the surrounding tables had gone very quiet. They were not pretending not to listen. They were not even pretending well enough. Beta Hawthorne, Nikolai said, you do not get to ask Miss Rivers for anything privately. You gave up that privilege the day you rejected her publicly. This is between Elena and me. There is no longer anything between you and Elena. With all respect, Beta. Look at me, Lucas looked. You will not address her again tonight unless she addresses you first. You will return to your wife. You will smile through the rest of this reception. And you will live with the consequences of every choice you have made in the last 6 months. Do we understand each other? Lucas was breathing hard. His eyes flickered between Nikolai and Elena and back. Something in him was unraveling in real time. Elena could feel it. The control he had spent 6 months performing was coming apart at the seams. Elena, I see you now. I see what I did. You see me now, Elena said quietly, because someone else saw me first. That is not love, Lucas. That is regret. And it does not get you anything. The slap was so loud the music stopped. Vivian Sterling had crossed the room. Elena had not seen her coming. Vivian's palm cracked across Lucas's cheek with the full weight of 3 generations of bridal humiliation behind it. The sound carried to the back of the hall. How dare you, Vivian? How dare you? On our mating day, in front of my mother, in front of every wolf I have ever known. For her, Vivian, it's not. For her, Lucas, panicking, said the worst thing he could have said. He said it before he knew he was saying it. He used a word about Elena that you do not use about another woman in front of 300 witnesses and an alpha king. The reception inhaled as one. Elena rose from her chair. She rose slowly. She was not in a hurry. Her hands were steady now. They had stopped shaking somewhere during Vivian's slap. She felt the silver heat under her skin in a way she had felt only twice before. Both times in dreams, the candles in the hall flickered, all of them, at once. Several champagne flutes on the nearest tables sang a small high note, and then went still. Elena looked at Lucas Hawthorne. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The hall had gone so quiet that a whisper would have carried to the kitchen. I have been called many things in the last 6 months, by wolves who could not look me in the eye. I will not be called that. Not by you. Not tonight. Not ever again. Lucas's mouth was open. The only fool in this room, Lucas Hawthorne, is the man who rejected his true mate in front of half the pack, and is now crawling back after seeing what he threw out, because he finally realized I was not the small thing he told himself I was. She took a single step closer. You wanted me here tonight to watch myself be humiliated. I came. And I watched yours instead. From somewhere near the kitchen, an old voice rose. Quiet, but enough. Elder Cordelia Ashford, leaning on her cane, had come to a wedding she had not been invited to. She was looking at Elena with an expression Elena would remember for the rest of her life. Silver Scribe, Cordelia said, after 200 years. The bloodline wakes. The hall did not so much react as crack. You could hear it in the small sounds, the intake of breath at the high table, the chair scraping back as some elder pushed away from his plate, the soft, helpless O of an Omega standing by the back door. Alpha Reyes Sterling looked like a man who had just realized his house was on fire. Lucas Hawthorne looked like a man who had just realized he was the match. Nikolai rose. He set down his champagne. He extended his arm to Elena. I think, he said, in a voice meant for everyone. We have seen enough of Silver Moon hospitality. For one evening, she took his arm. They walked the length of the reception hall. The crowd parted again. Differently this time. They were no longer parting for a curiosity. They were parting for something they were not entirely sure was safe. At the back of the hall, just before the door, Lucas's voice cracked out one last time behind them. Elena. Wait. She did not wait. She did not turn. The doors opened. The cold mountain air rolled over her face. She walked down the steps, with Nikolai's arm under her hand and the runes on her dress catching the light, and somewhere inside her chest, the silver thing that had been waiting since she was 14 was wide awake and had no intention of going back to sleep. The drive to the royal court took most of the night. She slept for some of it, her head against the leather of the seat, her hands folded in her lap. She dreamed of the temple again. This time she walked through the door. She did not see what was inside before she woke up. She woke at dawn to mountains she had never seen. The court was carved into the eastern face of a Colorado ridge, set back from a small mountain town. The kind of place that did not appear on most maps. Stone and glass, towers that grew out of the rock, terraced gardens cut down the slope in stages. Wolves were already moving along the upper walkways in the early light, going to morning duties. She had never seen anything like it. Nikolai watched her face. He did not say, "Welcome home." He had the sense not to. "You will sleep before we talk. Helena will see you to your rooms. Eat something. The questions will wait until you can hold them." Helena Marsh was waiting in the entry hall. She was tall, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who had been running things long enough to have stopped pretending to be impressed by anyone. She nodded at Nikolai. She turned to Elena. "Miss Rivers, Helena. You will not be Miss Rivers here for long. The court does not stand on ceremony with the people it intends to keep. Come." She led Elena up 2 flights of stone stairs, through a corridor of arched windows, and into a suite of rooms that Elena could not quite process. A sitting room, a bedroom with a bed wider than her old apartment, a bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown a small horse, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the eastern gardens. Light coming in like it had been waiting for her. "There are clothes in the wardrobe. He had them sent up. If they do not fit, tell me. Meals are taken in the main hall, or you can request a tray. The library is 3 doors down. The training courtyards are in the east wing. You are free to walk the court. I would suggest not doing so alone for the first week. It is easy to get lost, and some of our residents are not yet sure who you are, Helena." "Yes, why is he doing this?" Helena paused in the doorway. She turned. The gray eyes were not unkind. 8 years I have worked for him. I have watched him court alliances, manipulate enemies, outplay a sitting council on 3 continents. I have also watched him recognize potential and protect it. He is not always gentle, Miss Rivers. But he is not cruel without reason. And he is not pretending about you." She left. The door closed quietly behind her. 3 days passed in a blur of sleep, food, training, and the strange disorientation of waking up somewhere your body had not yet learned. Cassandra Holloway. The energy worker assigned to her came every morning at dawn. She was small, copper hair, freckles, the kind of eyes that did not blink as often as they should have. She taught Elena to light a candle from across the courtyard. She taught Elena to put one out without breathing on it. She taught Elena to feel the shape of a lie, before the lie had finished forming in another wolf's mouth. On the 4th morning, Helena Marsh knocked on Elena's door. "He wants you in the war room." Now, the war room was deeper inside the mountain than Elena had been so far. 3 stories down, stone walls, a long oak table covered in maps, pins, red and black, phones along one wall, 3 of them were ringing. Nikolai stood at the head of the table. He had not slept. She could tell by the line of his shoulders before she saw his face. "Elena, what is it?" "Sit." She sat. He slid a folded document across the table. She opened it. It was a formal grievance. Filed with the crown. 3 signatures at the bottom. Lucas Hawthorne, Alpha Reyes Sterling, Beatrice Sterling. The grievance accused Nikolai of abducting a member of the Silver Moon Pack under false pretenses. It cited Lucas's belief that she had been under emotional duress. It demanded her return to her pack of origin for evaluation by neutral mediators. It was signed and notarized. She set it down very carefully. They are trying to drag me back. Yes. They did not want me when I was nothing. They did not want me when I was being humiliated in their hall. No, and now you are the only silver scribe in 200 years, and they realized too late that they let her walk out the door. She picked up the pen. He set another document beside the first. A declaration of voluntary residence. She wrote her name without hesitation. Elena Margaret Rivers. Her full name, the one her mother had used only when she was angry, the one Elena had not written in 9 years. Nikolai took the document. He folded it. He handed it to Helena, who had appeared at his elbow without sound. Send it to the registry tonight. I want the response on Alpha Sterling's desk by lunch tomorrow. Helena left. Nikolai turned back to Elena. Now ask me what you have been holding for 4 days. She did. Why do you really need a silver scribe? He pulled a small leather book from the inside of his jacket. He set it on the table between them. He turned it so the cover faced her. Symbols. The kind of symbols that hurt to look at if you were not the kind of wolf they had been waiting for. She felt the pull immediately. Like a hook in the back of her sternum. This is one of 17. The others are in the Eastern Archive. Sealed shut since 1794. What's in them? I have suspicions. They are unkind. I did not want to tell you until I was certain. Now I think you are owed, he sat. 2.5 centuries ago, the Western Pax went through a period our records call the Quiet Famine. Bonds stopped forming. Shifts began to fail. Whole bloodlines went silent. The records soften it. The records lie. I think it was a correction. I think our ancestors did something to deserve it. And I think we have been doing it again. Mate bonds in the Western Territory have been failing for 2 years. There is a village in northern Wyoming where every wolf under 20 has lost the ability to change form. The healers have no explanation. The answer, Elena, is in those books. And you are the only person alive who can read them. She looked at the small leather book on the table between them. Tonight, Elena, tonight. I am not waiting. The Eastern Archive at night was a different building from the Eastern Archive in daylight. The lamps were brass. The air was colder. Marcus Whitlock, the court's senior archivist, arrived with a leather pad and 3 pencils sharpened to needle points. Cassandra came last. She brought a small bowl of water and 3 white stones, hands on the book, eyes open. Do not push, do not pull. Just say yes. Elena set her hands on the cover. The symbols rose. It was not light exactly. It was awareness. As if every mark on the page had been listening for her name and had finally heard it. She began to read. Her hand moved without instruction. Marcus's pencil flew. Cassandra sat behind her, palms warm against Elena's shoulders, feeding her steady, careful energy. The text began with a warning. To the daughter who finds this book, read carefully. The history of our line is not what you have been told. Elena's hand kept moving. We did not lose the gift away to politics by accident. We sold it. Slowly. Over 4 generations. Each beta who chose a daughter of an alpha over his true mate. Each alpha who rewarded his beta for choosing well. Each pack that called it strategy. We taught our young that politics is the same word as love. We were wrong. The mother saw. The mother always sees. Elena was sweating. When the famine came, it took the rejected first. Then it took the rejectors. Then it took their children's wolves. By the end, 11 bloodlines had been ended. She stopped writing. She could not breathe for a moment. Cassandra's hands tightened on her shoulders. Keep going, Rivers. You're almost through, she kept going. There is one bloodline whose name you must remember, the Hawthorns. The first beta of the second pack of the Western Territory. He rejected his silver scribe true mate. He chose the Alpha's daughter. His son did the same. His son's son did the same. 3 generations of the same crime. The mother did not strike them down. The mother withdraws gifts more elegantly than that. Each generation of Hawthorns after the original betrayal was born with less. Less fertility, less wolf, less time on this earth. By the 7th generation, the line will end, either with a single beta who breaks the pattern, or with no Hawthorns at all. Elena's hand stopped. She read the page she had just written. She read it again. She looked up at Marcus. Marcus had stopped writing. Marcus, yes. How many generations is Lucas? Marcus's face did something very controlled. He set down his pencil. Elena. Lucas Hawthorne is the 5th. She sat very still. Lucas was the 5th. The book said the line ended at the 7th. Lucas was the last beta of his bloodline who could still break the pattern. Or be the one to extinguish it for good. She thought of his face at the dais. The way his vow had vibrated wrong. the way he had stared at his own button. Nikolai needs to see this. Yes, now Marcus left, she read on. She read until her vision blurred. She read until Cassandra finally pulled her hands away from the book. Enough. Rivers. Enough. You will burn out. We will be no use to anyone if you cook yourself in one night. Elena slumped back. The room tilted. She felt Cassandra's arms catch her. She felt cool cloth against her forehead. Then she felt nothing for a while. When she woke, Nikolai was in the chair across from her. The lamp was low. The book was closed. How long? 8 hours. You read it. I read what you wrote. Marcus has the full transcript. Then you know. Yes, Nikolai. He doesn't know. Lucas. He has no idea what his name is carrying. No, they never do. The Hawthorns burned most of their own records 4 generations ago. The chronicles I have are partial. We knew the line was diminishing. We did not know why. Until now, what do? We do nothing. He will live or he will not. It is in mine. The book said the pattern can still be broken, Elena. Listen to me. What? He rejected you on a training ground in front of 40 witnesses. He sent you an engraved invitation to his wedding. He used a word about you in public that I would have hit a smaller man for using. He cannot break the pattern with you. You are not allowed to be the one who saves the Hawthorne line. You are not allowed to be. I did not say I was going to save him. I know you did not say. I am saying it for you. Because you have a soft place under all that anger, and I will not let you mistake it for forgiveness. She did not answer. She did not have one. Then what? Then we tell the alphas. All of them. 30 packs. They have a right to know what is coming. The council convened in the Great Hall 10 days later. 30 alphas, their betas, their lunas, a delegation of elders. Marcus had bound the transcript into 30 leather cover copies. Elena rose. She wore gray. She wore her hair pulled back. She wore no jewelry. She walked to the center of the dais and looked at 30 alphas and did not feel small. I am Elena Rivers. I am the last silver scribe of my generation. I have read your ancestors' words. I am going to tell you what they said, she told them. She named 6 bloodlines that the book had marked. She did not name the Hawthorns. She did not need to. 3 alphas in the hall went pale. They knew their own family trees. You have not lost your way because the moon goddess is cruel. You have lost your way because you have spent 4 generations teaching your sons that a good match is the same word as a profitable one. The mother is not punishing you. She is simply done lending you what you stopped honoring. You can still earn it back. Some of you, not all of you, and the time you have to try is shorter than you think. The hall was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then Alpha Stone of the Northern Ridge Pack stood. Big man, scar across his face. The kind of alpha who had a reputation for not believing in anything. My oldest son rejected his true mate 8 years ago, married my cousin's daughter. He cannot shift anymore. Has not been able to for 2 years, Miss Rivers. Will my son die? Elena felt the room hold its breath, yes, unless he finds the woman he rejected and makes amends, and she chooses to allow it. Even then, no promises. The mother judges intent. Not gestures, he sat. He put his head in his hands. 3 other alphas stood after him. Different versions of the same question, different versions of the same answer. She gave each one the truth. She did not soften it. She did not sharpen it. She gave them what she had. 3 weeks later, the message came. Alpha Reyes Sterling had stepped down. Without warning. He had named no successor. He had walked out of the Alpha's house and driven east in a truck. He had been seen at a diner outside of Boise. The Silver Moon Pack was leaderless. Lucas Hawthorne was no longer beta. The interim leadership council had voted him out. He had moved into his mother's old cottage on the edge of the territory. Vivian Sterling had filed paperwork to dissolve the mating bond. Through the human courts as well as the pack ones. She had been seen, twice, in a small city in Oregon, getting out of a rental car at a hotel where no wolves were registered. Elena read the dispatches with no expression on her face. You should go back, Nikolai said. No, yes, why? Because there are wolves there who were kind to you. Because you are the only silver scribe in 2 centuries. And you have an obligation to be seen by the people who once said you were nothing. You owe them nothing. You owe yourself the visit, she agreed 3 days later. She returned to Silver Moon Pack with no entourage. She drove herself. Jeans, a coat. She stopped at the diner, halfway up the mountain, and ate a grilled cheese sandwich at the counter, while the snow started in the trees outside. She drove past the training ground without slowing down. She parked outside the library. Mrs. Hennessy was at the front desk. The old woman looked up. She put a hand over her mouth. Elena. Honey. Elena hugged her over the desk. Hard. Mrs. Hennessy smelled like the same lavender hand cream she had worn for 30 years. Elena spent the day visiting. Zoe at the cottage at the edge of the woods, Margot at the boutique. She drank tea in Cordelia Ashford's parlor and listened to the old woman pour with shaking hands that Elena knew better than to help. There is one more thing you should do before you leave, Cordelia. Go to the cottage, child. You will not get peace until you do. She drove the back road to Lucas Hawthorne's mother's cottage in the late afternoon. The light was already starting to slip. The road had not been plowed. Her tires crunched through a thin layer of new snow. The cottage came up around a bend, smaller than she remembered, smoke from the chimney. One window lit, she parked. She sat for a long time with her hands on the wheel. She got out. Lucas opened the door before she knocked. He had lost weight. His skin had a gray cast that had nothing to do with the cold. His eyes had hollows under them, deeper than the ones he had earned in 28 years of life. Elena, Lucas, don't. I'll come in if you ask me. I won't if you don't. Please come in. She came in. The cottage was small and warm and smelled like wood smoke and tea. He poured her a cup without asking what she took, he remembered. She did not know whether to be glad or sad about that. They sat across from each other at a small kitchen table. Vivian left, I heard. I lost the beta seat. You did? I haven't been able to shift in 11 days. She did not answer. Elena? Yes. I know what I am, you don't. Not all of it, but you know enough. I read the transcript. The council got copies. Cordelia let me see hers. You read about your family. I read about my family. He looked up at her then. His eyes were wet, but he was not crying. He was past crying. He was somewhere quieter than that. 5 generations? Yes. Why didn't anyone tell us? Because your great-great-grandfather burned the records. Because the men who came after him doubled down on the lie. Because shame is heavier to carry than ignorance. And your bloodline chose ignorance for 4 generations in a row. He absorbed it. He did not argue, Elena. Is there anything I can do? She set down her cup. She looked at him for a long time. She thought about the training ground. She thought about 3 days of not eating. She thought about the omega with the cream envelope and the red ears. She thought about her dress arriving in a garment bag, and her own laughter that night, and the way Nikolai had said you will not break tonight, and how she had not, and she would never need to again. She looked at the man across from her. He was not the man who had rejected her. Not anymore. Whoever he was now, he was someone smaller and quieter, and finally telling himself the truth. There is nothing you can do for me, Lucas. There is something you can do for the wolves who come after you. Your line ends in 2 more generations if no one breaks the pattern. You are the 5th. There are 2 left. If you have a son, teach him what your father did not teach you. If you do not have a son, find one. Mentor him. Tell him every honest thing about your own life. Tell him about me. Tell him about Vivian. Tell him about the day you stood on a training ground and chose smaller. Make him understand that the choice will come for him too, and that there is only one right answer to it. He nodded. He did not trust his voice, and Lucas, yes, you will probably shift again. The mother is not in a hurry, but she is not unkind. If you do the work, if you mean it. The wolf may come back, and if it does not, then you will live as a man. And you will be useful. And you will have earned that too. She stood. She set the cup in the sink. She walked to the door. He stood behind her. He did not try to touch her. He had learned that much, at least. Elena, yes, thank you for coming. I didn't come for you, I know. She drove down the mountain at dusk. The snow had thickened. The road was wet and shining. She had the heat on low. She did not cry. She had thought she might. She did not. She thought about her mother instead, about the line her mother had said in the hospital. No one gets to tell you who you are. She thought about how she had spent so many years thinking the line was about not letting other people define her. It was not only that. It was also about not letting herself define herself by the small estimates of small people. Lucas Hawthorne had told her she was not worth keeping. She had believed him for 6 months. That had not been Lucas's fault in the end. That had been her permission. She would not give that permission again. 1 year later, the Eastern Temple of the Silver Scribes opened its doors for the first time in 2 centuries, a small building of pale stone. A clearing in a national forest in Northern California that wolves had quietly held under a foundation for 2 centuries, waiting for the building to be needed again. Elena had overseen the restoration herself. Her first class was 20 students, young wolves drawn from packs across the country. The mother had been active. 3 more Silver Scribe descendants had awakened in the months after the council. Elena taught them in a circle on a stone floor. She wore plain gray. Her hair was longer now. She let it fall where it wanted. Your gift is not about being right. Your gift is about being useful. The pack will not always want the truth. You will tell it anyway, carefully, kindly, like a person setting a bone, not like a person breaking one. Do you understand? The students nodded. She walked them out into the late afternoon light. She stood in the clearing alone for a while. Nikolai found her there. He came up the path the way he always did. Without announcement, you looked good in front of them today. I felt good in front of them today. That's the better metric. He stood beside her for a long moment. The trees were just starting to turn. The first yellows, the first faint reds. Elena? Yes. We are not bound by anything we did not build ourselves. I know. I want to build something with you. Not as a fated thing. As a chosen thing. Every day, she looked at him. The silver eyes were closer to gray in the afternoon light. She had not noticed that before. She had not been looking for it. She did not say yes right away. She let the quiet sit between them. She had learned, in the year since the wedding she had attended, that quiet was not the same word as no. Yes. The light moved slowly in the trees. That night, alone, she stood at the window of her quarters at the temple and looked out at the same forest she had once dreamed of for 2 weeks. Different forest. Same trees. Same kind of moon. She did not feel like she had been saved. She felt like she had walked through every door and out the other side. Carrying her mother's voice in her chest. Carrying the small candle Cassandra had taught her to light from across a courtyard. Carrying the silver thing that had been waiting in her blood since she was 14 years old and had not known what waiting was. She turned out the light. She slept. She did not dream.